Hello, my name is Daniel Roberts, a volunteer at the Highline Heritage Museum, and you're listening to Highline Times in History on KQWZ 106.5 FM. And I'm with Roger Price.
We're both here at the museum today. We're sitting in the radio booth of One America. Do a little recordings, and we're going to try to do an ongoing show, a series during the summertime.
And the hope of this program is to record some of the memories of a long-term resident of the Highline area, so that you guys can enjoy it now or years from now.
Okay, well, thank you, Daniel. Yes, KQWZ 106.5.
Thank you for listening, and enjoy the show.
Good afternoon. I'm Roger Price, and I'm at the museum today with Daniel, and we're going to talk about Riverton. It was, to me, it was known as the Riverton Hospital, but prior to that, back in 1928, it was the Riverton Sanatorium. So it was a home for a lot of people that TB was quite common. Well, I shouldn't say common. It was going around back in those days. So they have the Sanatorium there on Military Road in Riverton Heights. And maybe Daniel can offer some of his research on what exactly it would all entailed.
Yeah, I looked up a little bit about it. Tuberculosis was also known as the White Plague, and it was a highly contagious disease that could be breathed in. Many people contracted it, that they were treated at places called sanitariums. They would have various means of trying to treat it: vaccination, artificial or actual light. And I guess it was also in the King County area or the Seattle area. The U.S. Office of Public Health had stated in 1908 that Seattle had the worst record of fighting tuberculosis. And that's probably the reason why there was an anti-tuberculosis league of King County that was formed the following year. As for this sanitarium in particular, from what I found, it was founded by what was the Denny family. I unfortunately wasn't able to find more on them specifically, but it opened its doors in 1928, and it had Dr. Elmer Ellsworth Hegg as the elected director at the start. One of the one that we were talking about, Riverton, existed near Burien, like you're saying, Military Road, and it was a series of cottages that covered 43 acres of land. The main building contained an office for the business manager, a library, and a large dining hall with a fireplace and kitchen. And it was fully stocked with equipment needed for chemical and microscopically examination. Sorry, that's a different word for me, but and in addition, it had an X-ray, a laboratory, a dark room, and an examination room. So, it had a fair number of stuff. Let's see. The cottages themselves had one or two beds, and 5 of them had bathrooms, whereas the ward that they had there had a capacity of 20 beds and 4 separate sleeping rooms. They had baths, toilets, dressing rooms, closets, and a recreation hall. The infirmary had 9 single rooms, a nurse's office, a bathroom, and a toilet. And this building was specifically for patients with a fever or needed special care. All the buildings had electric light, which I guess, if you look at the time of 1928, that does make sense that might be a little bit different. And the main buildings had steam heat. In addition, the sanitarium had its own water tower that was kept in case of a fire, and it collected from the springs in the area. The sanitarium grounds had cultivated gardens with rose bushes, evergreen trees, and flowers. And they also grew their own vegetables that were used in the kitchen. So, being a little bit efficient, and sounds like it would be at least a pretty area to be in. In addition to growing vegetables, they also had their own dairy cattle that provided the milk and cream and had over 300 hens that provide eggs. So maybe it was a little bit noisy though with all those chickens. Speaking of meals, they seem to have a timely schedule for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast was between 7:30 and 8 a.m., and it consisted of fruits, stewed vegetables, hot cakes, eggs, toast, and coffee. Some alternatives were eggs, ham, and bacon, or tea, coca, or milk. Lunch was at noon, and it would consist of soup, roast with potatoes, vegetables, dressing, pie, or pudding with whipped cream, milk or tea. And dinner was from 5 to 5:30 p.m. And it was either steak or chops with vegetables, potatoes, salad, fruits, and milk. And meals could differ based on the dietary needs based on a physician's directions. So, from the sounds of it, being at the sanitarium was a very regimented ordeal. You had a very strict schedule, it would seem, at least at certain parts. For entertainment, though, the Red Cross provided various entertainment weekly, as well as movies and other diversions. And some of these services were donated by professionals, and they also had a large library that I had previously mentioned. The Riverton Sanatorium was the one that TB patients that had financial means stayed, while those without those means would stay on a waiting list or sometimes be admitted at Furland. The rates were $20 in the ward, $25 in the two-bed cottage or infirmary, and $30 in a single cottage. But despite that, it wasn't that the institution was conducted for financial gain or anything like that, and the rates were essentially arranged to cover the costs of maintenance only. And furthermore, the charges included the first examination, treatments, medicine, and x-rays, and several other things, with the extra fees being personal laundry and the thermometer, which I guess, given that it was a highly contagious disease, you'd have to have your own. Uh, Patients provided their own blanket, bathrobes, and slippers. And lastly, like for the cases that were deemed too far advanced or hopeless, those folks were not admitted. Let's see. Other folks that were admitted to Riverton were part of a Native Alaskan TB hospitalization program. This came around the time that the TB sanitariums were being closed down due to cases dwindling in the United States, though sadly, the Alaska Native cases seem to have continued to rise. And while there was the Alaska Native Service Hospital in Anchorage that opened in 1953, it couldn't accommodate the sheer number of patients that it was receiving. So, in order to kind of lessen the workload, Congress had appropriated $1.18 million to pay for 2 years of hospitalizations at three different sanitariums in Washington. Those were Riverton, Laurel Beach, and Furland. Some of these patients were John Edward Lindquist. There's Harold Johnson, Elizabeth Baxter, Edmund Nelson, and Casimir, Scooby Casimir. Apologize on the mispronunciation. Uh, and that was just to name a few. Some of these people sadly didn't survive their affliction, but others did end up recovering and living out their lives, either in this area or back in Alaska. For example, Elizabeth and her brother, who had also been admitted, both recovered, with her going on to marry a Boeing engineer, William Baxter. Another, Robert Mayo Cook, was an artist who had suffered a long time from TB, and he was in Riverton during a relapse that he had for 2 years. He had recovered and returned to Alaska, and he was at the time a well-known artist during his lifetime, and had sold thousands of drawings each year. Uh, but it was around the 1940s that the doctors had found a better way of treating and controlling TB, and so hospitals started becoming less and less needed. And the end of sanatoriums in Washington itself was in October of 1973. As for Riverton, it was in 1961 that it was sold, and all the buildings were torn down to have a new hospital built. The name of the hospital changed to a variety of different ones, including Cascade Behavioral Health, which was closed, from what I read, in 2023 and was replaced by the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services. Uh, but an interesting little tidbit is at the front of the hospital, and I believe this would be the one that replaced it, was used in the series Twin Peaks. It showed up in a couple of episodes. But that's mostly of what I had managed to find, thanks to the help of some of the other folks here at the museum.
Yeah, well, that's right, Daniel. I believe I got vaccinated probably when I was in grade school. And it was, I think it was kind of eliminated when in the 50s, 60s, in that air time frame, so that it wasn't quite as serious of a threat then. I know people I'd seen when I was a young kid that they used to have on their arm, you could see a round circle where they were shot in the arm with a needle that was the vaccination, and it left kind of permanent scar there. Was about the size of a nickel, but yeah, that that eventually disappeared and different things. But yeah, that hospital I can remember. It was I was actually in there for a while myself back in the 1980s for a condition that I had. It wasn't any related to anything like this, but yeah, it's so it's kind of a little information about that hospital there on Military Road.
Oh yeah, and I mean, the historian in me finds it a little bit of a shame that it was torn down. I mean, I know that there's lots of sanitariums, but it's always interesting to see the relics of the past. Like over in my hometown of Las Cruces, there's a park called Dripping Springs, and there's an old abandoned sanitarium there, and it's kind of just interesting to see these old facilities and how they try to treat people. In the case of the one in my near my hometown, it was because they believed the dry air would be good for their lungs.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, that's sure a lot of those back in the day where it did exist, and it's different, a little bit different nowadays. I know it's been remodeled several times, and now it's I can't remember exactly what it is right now. It's maybe it's another uh,
Yeah, yeah, it's at
behavioral Olympic heritage behavioral health there, and that's they've taken over now, and they seem to be doing quite well. So
yeah.
anyway, that's a little insight into the Riverton Hospital and the Riverton Sanatorium from when it started around 1928.
Yes. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I think that's kind of it.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you folks for listening in. And just so you know, this should be the last episode for season, I believe we're in two. So we're going to go ahead and take a couple months to get some more research, find some more fun stories. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one and will be with us when we come return.
Yes. Thank you very much.